Hi there, John. Lark here from Sphere Fitness. Okay, if you are a rugby player and just finished your playing season, then listen up because what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you today some some great tips for mapping out your off season, which can last anywhere 12, 16, 20 weeks. It really depends on when you want to kick off and get going. I know some lads who started a week before kicking off the championship, but anyway, I digress. It's all about preparation. So if you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail. And really, this is you get out what you put into your pre-season. If you've it's a great period of time when you can just really focus on your weaknesses, and rather than keep honing your strengths all the time, you can really kind of be honest and focus where those weaknesses are and go after them big time. So I'm going to share with you a little step-by-step guide today on what a successful off-season looks like and it needs, from needs analysis and player auditing, testing, injury prevention and prehabilitation, as it's widely called nowadays, strength, speed, strength, some accessory work, the right type of fitness work you need to do, and what we call that power endurance. And we're going to touch on health for performance, and then we're going to work on just kind of combining this into a strategy that's executed with conviction. So the first port of call really is a needs analysis, or what we call a player audit, whereby we sit you down and we have a look at where you score yourself in all those realms of athletic profiling. So that could be strength, speed, skill, endurance, flexibility, injury, red zones, and so forth. It really needs to be put into a kind of melting pot on a score sheet, and then you can see, because everyone has individual weaknesses, and you won't know that until you take a good honest look at yourself and have a third party really appraise where you're at and where you sit. It's all well and good. The easiest thing to do, and this is what 99% of players do, is they just focus on their strengths. So if they're strong, they just keep getting stronger. A time and a place, but really the off season is a time when you work really hard on your weaknesses. And then it comes to testing. Now, I'm all for testing. I'm all for accurate testing. But ultimately, the testing comes in the gym and on the track or wherever you're doing it, in terms of your performances. But it's good to have some testing and a battery of tests that work. Things that test your strength, things that test your power levels, things that test your anaerobic conditioning, your aerobic conditioning, and primarily they act as a motivating tool. So say for instance you come in for a body composition test, and then at the end of your 12-16 weeks it's clear that all that work has gone in, you put on 4 or 5 pounds of lean muscle and lost the same amount of body fat, and ultimately you're just a better specimen of athlete. So it's really important that you focus on that area. Then we've got injury prevention, and again, from your needs analysis and from your audit, you will see where those red zones lie on you. So that could be a recurring hamstring pull, it could be a recurring groin or tears, it could be dodgy knees or ankles that you keep going over and so forth. But they're all depend on you. It could be your position as well. So a prop will have ultimately a different program design strategy and exercise selection compared to a winger. So all these things have to be taken into account when you're designing your program. And then the foundation is ultimately laid with maximal strength work. And again, when you're doing your injury prevention, it's key that you learn to isolate, then integrate. And we found this to be very, very important when if you're rehabbing back from injuries or you're trying to prevent injuries. There's no good doing a very, very heavy squat when you've got a lower back which is as weak as paper. You really need to take into account and focus on those areas and bring them up to speed, because ultimately you're only as strong as your weakest link. Once you've corrected that, which doesn't take a lot of work, but it does take focus work, then you can really hone in on improving those maximal strength loads and getting some good quality strength work. And likewise, if strength is already a weakness, that's when you can again focus on maybe lighter loads but with faster velocities, and you can get stronger that way as well. And that's what we call kind of speed strength or strength speed. So that's a big area we can work on as well. In the off season, accessory work. So a lot of people make the mistake of just primarily focusing all their gym work around just accessory work, when they miss the kind of the big bang lifts, the big movements that really are determinants of success as well. But the accessory work is important. So we could be pulling sleds, we could be working on individual body weight stuff to get more control around the joints. We could be working on lower back or hamstrings or glute work. We could be working on back work, upper back. It could be anywhere where we have found a weakness in your chain which needs that extra bit of attention. So ultimately the whole unit comes up to speed with it, because like I said, you're only as strong as your weakest link. Which leads us on to fitness. Now traditionally fitness is all about doing the laps, or 10-15 minute jogs, 20-minute jogs, half an hour, building up the base. Now I don't see any problem with that, but your time is better spent when you actually look at the actual demands of rugby, and it's a power event. It's short, explosive bouts of work done repetitively for 80 minutes. So that's how we condition our athletes with power endurance. And I love what I picked up from the likes of Craig White, is the type of wrestling and grappling drills that we do a lot of, and put them into kind of a skill-based expression circuit mixed with power and heavy weights done for low reps and so forth. So power endurance, that's the way to condition for rugby and get you actually fit for the game, rather than things which don't have any bearing or any relevance to your conditioning levels. Then we actually look at speed and power, so we'll see tenets of athleticism, of power, and being able to express strength with high velocities, things like jumping and some basic plyometric work, as long as you have a good level of foundational strength. And then if you are strong, we can really hone in on the speed, which does require some form of technique analysis and looking at your mechanics to an extent. But again, that can be addressed as well. And then ultimately, this is where the magic really happens, because you put together a great plan, 12-16 weeks in length, but your recovery, which is essentially very, very what we call catabolic. It's going to break the body down and break it down and break it down, and we just keep training and training and training. We keep breaking the body down. If the time outside of those windows where you're breaking the body down is not very anabolic, in the sense it's not helping or assisting your recovery, then you're ultimately spinning your wheels, and that's where health comes in. You do need to dial in your nutrition, you do need to dial in your stress levels and your sleep patterns, and you just need to make a concerted effort to make the other 23 hours or 22 hours or however many hours outside of the training paddock count. And that's key. So, and I credit Phil Richards for turning me on to this. You need health for performance. There's no two ways about it. And it's great when you see young athletes, they can get away with a little bit more, but in the long run, they're not going to keep. And can they get away with a little bit more? I see, and I don't need any studies to prove, I see correlations between athletes who insist on abusing their bodies with late nights and poor diets, and yet still come into the gym. They break down, they pick up knocks, they pick up niggles that they just can't shake. They have nasty blowout injuries, cruciate shoulders, again, they can't shake. So, it does correlate. I don't need studies to prove it. I can tell you now from the hundreds of athletes I've worked with over the years, health makes magic. And then we look at the plan executed with conviction. Now, I could get Twin A and Twin B, and I could get Twin A in this fanciful plan, executed with about as much enthusiasm as a toddler who wants to give up his toys. And then I get Twin B with a plan that's a bit loose, but when they do it with 110%. I know who's going to be going onto the field of play well prepared. So what I've just laid out before is important, no doubt about it, but it's got to be executed with conviction. So if you can't commit to a certain amount of time per week, even though it's ideal, and you can't execute in reality what is asked you, then you're wasting your time. You're better off making sure that you can actually commit to it with 100%, and then follow it through, rather than something which looks great on paper but you're not going to be able to execute. So planning, execute with conviction wins out in the end of the day. So look, there's a few key pointers. You know, we looked at needs analysis, we looked at testing, injury prevention, strength and speed, accessory, and ultimately the whole package, the whole piece of pie has to be put together in some form of meaningful strategy that you then can execute. Hopefully that's helped you. I'll see you soon.